guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, Tyrannical HOA stole my home and ruined my credit. I lost everything. Summary. Family loses home after HOA puts a lien on it during a family emergency. They have to file bankruptcy and take years to recover, but eventually happiness comes out of a sad situation. About 7 years ago my life seemed like it was going great. I had finally landed the job I'd always wanted, high paying and great benefits, and we were able to move into our dream home. That is until a horrible, greedy HOA decided to make everything a living hell. My wife and I had been married for less than a year when we moved into the home and had big plans for a family and future there. We knew when we purchased it that we would have an HOA, and we read through all of the legal mumbo-jumbo like you're supposed to. I wasn't afraid of living in an HOA-governed neighborhood because my parents had been in one for almost 20 years and had no issues. The home and neighborhood were perfect. The people next door were always great and became close friends of ours eventually. We honestly had no issues for the first 2 years that we lived there. That is until we had a family emergency that kept us occupied for almost a month. My beautiful wife Melanie and her family are from Puerto Rico. There was a huge and devastating tropical storm that damaged thousands of homes and businesses on the island, including my wife's grandparents' and parents' residence. Her grandfather also became ill and was in the hospital for quite some time after the storm. Long story short, we rushed to pack and fly out there to see and help her family get back on their feet. We did the best we could with the short amount of time that was available and sent the HOA a letter and an email, stating what was going on and that the yard and other upkeep might not be done. We didn't hear back from them before we ended up leaving for PR. With everything that was going on, we honestly never even worried about the house or the HOA. At this point I still had good faith that nothing bad would happen because we took the steps to notify them of our emergency. Well, we were wrong. After almost a month of being gone in PR, we received a phone call from our neighbor, stating that there were dozens of letters on the front door and that there was something that looked suspiciously like a legal document. This info got me spooked, causing me to pack my bags and head back to our home. My wife decided to stay in Puerto Rico until her father was out of the hospital. By the time that I arrived at home, I saw exactly what my neighbor had informed me of. There were dozens of letters on the front step, tucked under the mat and taped to the door. The worst document of all was one that was clearly the legal paper he had mentioned. Upon reading it quickly, it is quite apparent that this is some kind of lien that they've put on our house. I had no idea what this type of thing entails, but I know that it's not good. I called dozens of lawyers and spent hours trying to find someone who was willing to help. I finally found a guy, but he was not giving me the best feeling in the world. He essentially told me that these types of things are undisputable and that fighting HOAs in court is a suicide mission for homeowners and their attorneys. Awesome. Not only was I in trouble with the HOA and the mortgage company now, but I was also in the hot seat with my job. Being gone so long had put me in a position where I was replaceable, which is exactly what ended up happening a few weeks later. I called my wife and let her know what was going on and she cried over the phone. She felt like everything was her fault. I tried to do the best I could to reassure her that this was just what happened and that neither her nor her family were to blame. By this time, her father was looking better and had a release date from the hospital. This allowed my wife to finally come back to the States. During this time, I had continued to make attempts to contact and speak with the HOA board. It ended up being such a pain in the ass trying to get a hold of them that I just went to one of the meetings. I tried to explain my side, letting them know about the emergency in Puerto Rico as well as my job loss. This was an epic failure of all proportions because they not only ignored me but also informed me that they didn't do any kind of forgiveness with the homes in their neighborhoods. Basically, they told me that I was fucked even though we did the things we thought we were supposed to do to inform them of the situation before we left. The lien on the house was also weighing heavily on me and my wife. She had been trying to conceive for over a year now, but her stress over her family in PR and the issues with the house and HOA had officially taken its toll on her body and mind. Her fertility doctor finally told her that if she doesn't get away from this constant stress that she may struggle even more with getting pregnant. This just continued to add more insult to injury, and now she and I started fighting nearly every day. It was bad. We had always had a great relationship, rarely ever getting upset or arguing with each other. Finally, the time came for us to fight the lien on the home, and we were very quickly dismissed. The lien was not going away, and now I've realized that this is just a helpless situation that we are completely stuck in. Except we weren't. We could get out, but only after filing bankruptcy and moving out of our dream home. This was tragic news, and my wife was devastated. Not only did this entire ordeal destroy our credit, but it also set us back financially for several years. It felt like this situation had ruined my life and my marriage. I lost my job, my credit was tanked. I had bankruptcy on my record now, and my wife wouldn't speak to me. But there was a light at the end of this terrible HOA tunnel. In the midst of all of this hell, we moved into a small and quaint rental home, and I managed to find another great and supportive job. One that was even better than my old job. My wife's family continued to get better in Puerto Rico, and they even received some insurance money to help them rebuild their home. This news really took the stress off of my wife. A few months after leaving our dream home, that was governed by our tyrannical HOA, life slowly started to pick up and get back to normal. My wife even found out that she was pregnant with our twin sons. Leaving the HOA home was a gigantic stress and something that I would never want to deal with again, but in the end I feel like things worked out for the better. It felt like life and everything around me was falling apart, but it was like it happened for a reason. I've had my awesome job for years, and we've slowly built our credit back from the ground up. Something I'm crazy proud of, because filing for bankruptcy ruins your credit damn near forever. My wife and I are closer than ever as well, and I think that overcoming the stress associated with the HOA battle just strengthened our relationship. Now, we are waiting for our next house to be built, not in an HOA. My wife is pregnant with our first daughter, and we need some extra room for our growing family. The next story is titled, "My Neighbor Thinks I'm Her Doorman." I, NB 26, live on the ground floor of a block of flats that has a security door, so if you don't have a key, you need to be buzzed in. For the last month or so, one of my neighbors, female 30s, on the top floor has lost her key and has still to replace it, so instead she presses my buzzer to be let in. The first couple of times she did it, I let her in because I hate the sound of the buzzer. When I have people over, I will go out just before they arrive and open the door so they don't need to buzz in, and to be somewhat neighborly. Well, this has now led to her pressing my buzzer every time that she wants to come back in. I've taken to ignoring her when she buzzes my door. It's not my fault she doesn't have a key, and it's not my job to let people in. Because of this, she's taken to holding my buzzer in or pressing it several times before giving up and getting someone else to let her in. The other day, after having ignored her for about 5 minutes, she even came up to my living room window and looked in to see if she could spot me, and that was the last straw for me. The next night, I put up a sign saying that whoever was doing it, could they stop, because it's not my job to be the doorman, and that set her off. She went outside and started shouting and swearing at my window. My blinds were down, but some light from a lamp was bleeding through. That I wasn't being very neighborly, and that I was purposefully leaving her outside in the cold. We live in Scotland, and she chose to go out in just a jumper, and even lifted up my letterbox to moan at me when she did get in. About an hour ago, which prompted me to write this, she went out and started holding down my buzzer and moaning that I had to let her in because she was freezing. Edit. I am planning on reporting her to police via the non-emergency line. I just wanted to share this. Also, I don't know if she owns or rents, so I don't know if there's a landlord to speak to. I rent from my stepdad, who owns the unit I live in. Edit 2. I really doubt my stepdad would be able to do anything, as he doesn't know anyone in the building, let alone if any of the other flat are owned by landlords. And my buzzer does have a silent setting, however it doesn't work. Update. Hey, just wanted to give a little update on this. So after a week and a bit of silence from my neighbor, she came back demanding I let her in the other day. This time, she got into the building, pressed the buzzer as she did so, and then lifted up my letterbox and shouted in that she just wanted to be let into the building. She then went up to her unit loudly calling me an asshole, and I was a terrible person for not wanting to get up to let her in. So, I phoned the police and reported her for harassment. I gave them all the information I knew about her and was given a case number. I was told that if she presses my buzzer again or opens my letterbox or does anything that makes me feel uneasy, I've to phone them up, recite the case number, and they'll send officers out to deal with her. However, as I am a bit petty, I have pressed her buzzer a couple of times as I've left or entered the building. Edit. This was done before I contacted the police. I should have made it more clear and was just done out of frustration at the time, and started shutting the main entrance properly if I see her leave before me. I mean, anyone could come into the building that way, so we need to have that only those who are invited in or have keys to access the building should be able to enter. If anything happens again, I'll be sure to add to this update. The next story is titled, "An entitled person freaks out at a cafe because she can't get a table." This happened when I was out of town about a week ago. I was sitting in a cafe getting some writing done. I had tried to get a seat in there a few times throughout the week, and this was the first time I had actually managed, as it was pretty much always full. Today was no different, but I got by with headphones and the knowledge that no one was going to take me off my precious seat. Suddenly, a 50-something-year-old woman walked in with her husband. She looked around with an extremely disappointed look on her face, before muttering some angry rant to her husband nodding along with all of it. She suddenly stepped to the middle of the cafe, her husband in tow, and cleared her throat. I stupidly took my headphones off to see what was going on. Suddenly she launches into this tangent about how she wanted to sit down and how we were somehow selfish for taking seats for ourselves and staying there instead of leaving after a set time frame to let other people take seats. Next, she said, "Come on then, someone's got to get up so that me and my husband can sit in here." Of course, no one felt too obliged to do so after being ranted at self-righteously, so she fumed some more, and she and her husband began walking from table to table, giving everyone angry stares and occasionally making passive-aggressive comments. When she came to me, I just focused on my computer. She told me that I was impolite for not even looking at her. I didn't even reply, I just wanted her to leave. Eventually, one of the workers came up to her and said that she would have to go if she wasn't going to order anything and was disturbing the other customers. After a long row between the two of them, in which the woman made some lovely comments about the worker's choice of career, the woman left in a huff, her husband furiously following behind her. She flipped us all the bird as she left. One of the customers near me said it best, "Thank fuck that's over." Edit. I'm getting the impression that there may just be different rules of etiquette regarding cafes in different places. Just to clarify things, where I'm from, people are generally expected to spend longer than half an hour or so in a cafe. Most cafes build a lot of their brand on being places where people can chill out or work. This was a cafe with books and board games littered around the place, which was clearly a place where people were expected to stay a while. The cozy and inviting atmosphere was a big reason I wanted to be there to begin with. I don't think they objected to me writing there for an hour and a half. I also hope that it's not acceptable anywhere to rant at strangers because you can't get a seat. The next story is titled, "They Only Take Cash." Inspired by the story of the 2-cent bill that couldn't be paid in cash, I'd like to relate the story of a repair business that only wanted cash. The background is that I'm a musician and a speaker blew up like a month after the warranty expired. Figures. So even though I didn't have any warranty left, I still wanted the official repair guys to take a look at it. This is a business representing one of the world's largest brands that actually bought the original company that made my speakers. So, I expected to be dealing with professionals. I brought the speaker to them, they said they'd take a look and quote me for the repairs. So far so good. The quote took weeks. Then it took them about 3 months to repair it, apparently having to wait, or have forgotten about, for the part that needed replacing. At this point I was already mildly annoyed. I felt that months for a part replacement was pushing it, even with the supply chain issues. But eventually I got an email with the notification that I could collect my speaker upon payment in cash. No way to wire transfer the money. And the bill was €330 and a bit. It was explicitly mentioned that they didn't accept cards. Enter the MC. Because I'm a musician and from time to time I go busking. I find the art of trying to entertain people who have no interest in being entertained challenging. Anyway, that means I collect a lot of coins in the process. They wanted cash. I will give them cash. I counted out the money in whatever coins I had in my money box. I put it in 2 heavy plastic containers and went to collect my speaker. So they got me my speaker, everything seemed fine, and then the guy mentioned I still needed to pay. I produced my boxes. There was an audible swallow. The guy asked if I had larger money. I offered to pay by card. He said I couldn't. Well, then I don't have other ways of paying them. It was amazing how quickly the 3 men working there passed this job to the only woman in the store. Because she got the honor of counting this money. I sat down and waited. It took well over half an hour, and she claimed I was short. Now, I couldn't have been, so I went to try and check on her work, but our systems of counting were nothing alike. Hers being the erroneous one. After several minutes of trying to work out what's wrong, she spotted an error in her system that explained why she miscounted by almost €120. I took my speaker to my car. I heard someone say that maybe they should invest in a counting machine. Yeah, that's the problem here, guys, the manual counting. Great deduction. The last story is titled, Boss told me I couldn't take a smoke break if I wasn't smoking. I first started working at 17 as a housekeeper cleaning condo in downtown Toronto. It wasn't a bad gig. The building was under construction, finishing units and such, so there was quite a bit of dust, but other than that it was fairly easy work, and at the time I was getting above minimum wage. I was the only cleaner in the building, but I was good friends with the security guards and would hang out with them on most of my breaks. They were all smokers, and I noticed that they were taking small breaks, so if I happened to be near them when they were taking a smoke break, I would hang out with them. My boss was a sweet guy, but he did casually mention that the smoke breaks for smokers only, and I couldn't just hang out with them. Next break I sat down with the security guards, and they joked that I should just have a cigarette in my hand but not actually smoke it. That's when I decided to be a little bit creative with my malicious compliance. The next day I came into work with a small pack of sparklers. I kept them in my pocket, and when I saw the security guards taking a smoke break, I went out with them, pulled out a sparkler, lit it up, and just kind of stood there with them as the sparkler went off. We all had a good chuckle about it. The boss saw me and came outside, probably to talk to me about not taking a smoke break if I wasn't a smoker, but he saw the sparkler in my hand. The security guards pointed out that technically I was smoking, as the sparkler was producing little bits of smoke. The boss laughed it off, apologized, and said that as long as I get my work done, I can take smoke breaks with the others with or without the sparklers. Thank you for listening.